Welcome to the Kickstart Your Coaching Edge podcast, where it's all about getting real around all things coaching.
And what we know for sure is that what got you here won't get you there.
You can't see the spinach in your own teeth.
And finally, hang on, because this one's really deep. Once you realize that you are the traffic, everything makes complete and unadulterated sense.
Hey, Karen.
Yes, Jennifer.
It's like rain on your wedding day.
A free ride when you've already paid?
It's like a fly in your Chardonnay. Isn't it ironic? So this
Don't
is
you
what
think?
don't you think? This is what I'm cracking my ass up about. So we are dedicated weekly podcasts, go put them out there every Monday. And it's fantastic. And we've been doing it. And I don't know how many we've done, but I think we've done probably at this stage, probably about maybe about 60, 65, 75 podcasts. Never missing a beat.
Never.
And the month that we are ready to talk about commitment, we aren't ready with a podcast last Monday.
Isn't it ironic?
Don't you think?
A little too ironic.
So the interesting thing about this is about commitment. And it is kind of funny that we didn't do a podcast when we were supposed to do a podcast. But then I sit there and say, is it a lack of commitment that we didn't do the podcast? Or more, is it about competing commitments?
That's interesting because it could be. Because I think, Jen, actually, now that you're saying that, right? So it's competing commitments. So then it's just deciding what's more important at that moment. And it's not like we're not committed.
I think you nailed it, right? Because there was a day that we said, hey, we have a podcast that we need to do, and we have these other things. And I think we took a vote and we voted. Do the podcast or do the other things, and it was unanimous, 2-0. We needed to do the other things. So it's not that we're not committed. It's about picking and choosing your commitments when you have to, and then getting right back in for the follow through.
Yeah. It's actually I wonder what we would have, I know what we would have done if it was a 1-1 tie. If we were in Florida, you would have won. And if we were in New Jersey, I would have won.
Or we would have done our amazing Post-it note thing where we'll write down numbers and then blind draw, and whatever that is, we would have decided.
Good point. But I think that it's important, Jen, to actually, and I looked up the definition, right? And Webster's dictionary definition of a commitment is a pledge to do something, the state of being bound emotionally or intellectually to an ideal or course of action. So it's interesting because what that makes me think is that how do you make what one of my favorite things, right? You do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, how you said you're going to do it. And I feel like commitment is about keeping your word to your action. And one thing that really is important here is discipline. But the funny part about that, Jen, and I keep coming back to that day where we decided not to do the commitment podcast, there was that day our word was in alignment with our action to actually not to do it, to be committed to something else, which was more important on that day. And I think that that's okay. And I think that it's making sure that it's really a conscious choice in the moment, and which is going to fly in the face, I think, of something that we're going to talk about next time. But we're gonna talk that through next time.
It's interesting. I love that definition, Kara, because you said emotionally or intellectually, right? Do you have that handy to give me that line again?
Yeah. And so Webster's definition of commitment is a pledge to do something, the state of being bound emotionally or intellectually to an ideal or course of action.
So that's excellent, right? So it's so fascinating because when you think about commitment, sometimes you'll say, I'm totally committed. And then emotionally, you won't be committed. Or intellectually, you won't be committed. So if you really want to get trippy, so I'm going to give an example. So let's say I am committed to only eating home cooked meals and healthy vegetables. And then emotionally, at the end of the day, I'm tired and it feels like pizza would just be easier, right? So how can you then use your intellectual commitment to help you through that? Or sometimes when intellectually you're not as committed, how do you use your emotions? I'm just playing around with it. Like we think our thoughts create our feelings, create our actions, create our results. And commitment comes in action and results, but is created from emotion and thought. And I just was thinking, I think it's interesting that it says bound emotionally or intellectually to an idea.
Or a course of action. And Jen, as you're talking, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, are we trying to rationalize the fact that we didn't do it?
No. I'm not. I am at 100% peace, man.
and I'm totally at peace with it, but I'm also wondering, we both have phenomenal master rationalization skills. So I'm wondering if we're rationalizing commitment.
Oh, it's a great thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing is we're going to be talking about this for the rest of the month. And it's a good opportunity for the people listening to say, what's your relationship with commitment?
Yeah.
When do you follow through? When don't you? When does commitment go out the window? And the other thing is, did you notice that we didn't have an episode last week? You should drop us a line and let us know and said, we missed you. Because I got to tell you, it would have been interesting. If we had tons of people sending us emails and saying, we love your podcast, it's amazing, blah, 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 would that have changed our decision on the choice that we made when it came to commitment or not?
No.
All right. On that note, I think that's a wrap. It is good to be back in our podcast episode flow.
Let's do it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Kickstart Your Coaching Edge podcast. Craving more in-depth discussions? Check out the Get Real Inner Circle with our no BS in-crowd of coaches.
Join live coaching discussions, breakdowns of coaching calls, and have some fun while you're at it.
You're going to want to go to kickstartyouredge.com/inner circle. It's time to get real.